said, I can confirm that our VCPE firm, Afri Venture Capital Company Limited, will be, by the grace of God, begin operations initially in Abuja in January 2024 with Jimmy Lawal, Hafiz Bayero, Eyo Ekpo, and Kabiri Abo as founding directors and initial stakeholders. And he says, I am privileged to be the part-time chairman of the board. He says, please pray for our success and the Nigerian and in the near future African innovators and entrepreneurs we hope to finance, nurture and mentor to be the Dangote group of the future. Interesting.
Yeah.
Well, let's quickly move away from that now so we can meet up with Tam and have our guests.
Yes, absolutely. Now, we have this next report that has it that the leader of INRI Evangelical Spiritual Church, Primate Elijah Yodele, has urged Governor Godwin Obaseki of Edo State to consult properly before settling for an anointed candidate because he foresees disappointment and rejection. Primate Yodele revealed that Obaseki's present anointed candidate will, in his words, disappoint him and will lead the People's Democratic Party PDP to fall in the election. In a statement by his spokesman Oluwatosin Osho, Ayodele said fighting with other politicians will give his anointed candidate the ticket will only lead to failure. The man of God claimed the governor's candidate would be knocked out of the way, but he wouldn't see it now. He urged the governor to re-strategize and consult widely before finally settling for a candidate. Primate Yodele disclosed that mighty hands are coming to hijack Edo State from the PDP, and if loopholes are allowed, the PDP will lose out. Rachel, I feel...
I mean, talking about Edo crisis is quite funny because Shuaibu, Philip, the deputy, and Governor Obaseki are at loggerheads already fighting for that position. Now, it made me ask the question over the week. I was sounding like a broken record. Why does governors, if they don't like picking up their deputies to become governors, what is that thing that they feel, oh, the deputies are incapable of doing, so we can't handle such a critical position to them? And then Philip Shuaibu, on the other hand, has promised to defeat the governor's anointed candidate. Well, let's move away from that now before we come back and sit and talk about these issues properly. Well, a senior lawyer, Kayode Ajulo-san, the senior advocate of Nigeria, has alleged that some officials of the Ondo State, talking about Ondo crisis now, are signing documents on behalf of the ailing governor Rotimi Akeredolu. Well, Ajulo, who is the principal partner of Kayode Ajulo and co-counsel of law, said these in a televised interview today. Well, the senior lawyer noted that the deputy governor, Loki Ayedetiwa, cannot take over from the governor since power has not been transferred to him constitutionally, making way for the hijack of state governors by the cabals. Meanwhile, of course, President Bola Tinubu had urged the State House of Assembly to hold any move to sack the deputy governor on grounds that he trashes his ambition to be declared the acting governor of the state. I mean, there have also been reactions from the Information and Orientation Commissioner of the state, Mrs. Bamidele Ademola Olateju.
Now, on our next report, we have this, that the Information and Orientation Commissioner Bamidele Ademola Olateju addressed the media after the meeting, emphasizing the state's commitment to peace and adherence to resolutions reached with President Bola Tinubu. Ademola Olateju refuted allegations of Governor Akeredolu's signature being forged, stating that the governor still attends to files personally. She clarified that 2 documents surfaced online with different signatures purportedly belonging to Governor Akeredolu, saying nobody is forging the governor's signature, saying that the 2 files she sent to the Governor Akeredolu were approved and returned. The commissioner further highlighted issues discussed at the meeting, including resolutions from the recent meeting with President Bola Tinubu. These resolutions emphasized maintaining the status quo, avoiding dissolutions of executive members, the deputy governor writing an undated letter of resignation, non-interference with the House of Assembly and the continuity of the party executive. The state expressed a collective commitment to embracing peace. Ademola Olatunji also touched upon the distribution of palliatives across the state. She confirmed the distribution of 1,200 bags of rice to each of the 18 local government areas, with larger populations receiving additional support. Now, in the second phase, Gary beans and local foodstuffs were distributed, and pensioners have been receiving 10,000 naira since August. And she also stated that the state has reached an agreement with Labour to commence payment of 35,000 naira wage allowance from this month now onward. Now, Rachel, I don't know, is this a strategy to sort of douse the tension that is coming from the quarter of Akeredolu?
You know, I think that the issue with Ondo State has been one that looks like Nigerians feel it is self-centered and selfish. I mean, government is for the people, and of course, if this person is not capable, the Constitution says the deputy should stand in. What is the position of a deputy? It's like having, way back in school, you have the head boy, the assistant head boy, and all of that. So if this person cannot act, stand in and act in the person's capacity. I mean, so you're literally making that office
looks like it's all about personal interests.
Yeah, it's not valuable. So the office of a deputy is not valuable, is not respected. I mean, why is that office funded? Because it's been funded.
Absolutely.
So why are we funding the office and it's not making, you know, it can't
not
act? Yeah, you're crippling it. It wants to act, but you're crippling it. And this is a case where people have felt that, the people of Ondo State have felt that, I mean, the loyalists to Akeredolu have felt that if given the authority constitutionally to act as acting governor, you know, to act as governor rather, the Deputy Governor Ayodatiwa may likely use that time to foster his own
cabal, and then decide, probably in the next elections, you see him, Ayodatiwa, coming out to announce that he wants to be governor.
I mean, what if he even had the intention? Let's move away from that right now. Well, President Bola Tinubu's government has assured Nigerians that there is a bright future ahead of Nigeria, regardless of the current economic challenges facing the country. Now, one thing I'd like to say about this administration is the fact that, you know, it comes out to speak to the people. Now, I know what you're going through, but whatever you're going through, just know that there is a bright future. So, I mean, it's like saying, I'm not silent, I'm not sleeping, I see what is happening, but just know that there is hope at the end. Well, Secretary to the Government of the Federation, SGF, Senator George Akume, said these at the National Solemn Assembly, a day of praise, worship, and thanksgiving to God for Nigeria, held at the National Ecumenical Center in Abuja during the weekend. Akume noted that Nigeria was undoubtedly a gifted country, but also he noted that it had been in need of visionary leadership, and he urged the nation to offer prayers for the country's leadership and its success. Well, SGF called for support and cooperation for President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda, which is aimed, according to him, at propelling the country forward in a win-win manner. Well, Akume, who restated a strong belief in Nigeria's potential, citing its natural resources and wealth, said Nigeria is undoubtedly a gifted country. And he says we are rich in natural resources, including minerals, both solid and fossil. Well, he says we need visionary leaders to guide us, and that is what God has provided for us. And he also advised the Nigerian media to continue reporting on what unites the country and brings its people together rather than focus on what tears them apart. Now, this is what I'd like to talk about, the last part. You know, one thing about the media is that you don't just sit here and report what doesn't happen. No, if it's bad, you have to say it's bad. Now, if it's good, you have to say it's good.
Yeah. Now, that brings me to the part where Akume was talking about visionary leaders. And Rachel, I'm wondering, is he saying that the current administration is that visionary leadership we've been looking for.
You've seen it in his statement. He says, which God has given us. So it simply means this is the visionary leadership we've been looking for.
A lot of Nigerians will contest that, Rachel.
Okay, let's quickly move away from that now and check what's happening at the COP28 climate change summit in Dubai.
We have reports that the federal government has said the President Bola Tinubu did not speak at the COP28 climate change summit in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates, UAE, as planned because it was unnecessary
Why
in their words. I wonder. Now, according to media reports, the President Tinubu was billed to speak at the summit on Friday alongside other heads of state, but did not, which raised questions about the country's position at the conference. Well, speaking with online media, the summit's sidelines over the weekend, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Tuga, said Nigeria is tired of fancy statements and is now more action-oriented. Tuga stated that it is not about just giving fancy speeches, but actions. And Tuga said the government wanted a change of attitude towards the conference away from colorful speeches which are repeated every year with very little progress made. And Tuga further said Nigeria is taking the lead in the behind-the-scenes negotiations to ensure that developed countries responsible for most of the emissions causing global warming compensate developing nations in terms of loss and damage. The minister also noted that the ongoing climate change conversations tally with Nigeria's 4D foreign approach, including migration and development. Speaking on the loss and damage fund operationalized on the first day of the conference and applauded by many Nigerians, the minister said Nigeria was suited to benefit from the fund. Rachel, why did the president not speak at the COP28?
You know,
it is a vital question.
At this point, we're now sitting down to ask ourselves that question. Is that enough reason to say Nigeria's president did not speak? Well, away from that, while the former Vice President Atiku Abubakar has strongly criticized the reported over-bloated delegation by Bola Ahmed Tinubu to the COP28 climate summit in Dubai.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. Well, in a statement released by his media advisor, Paul Ibe, Atiku criticized strongly the size and nature of the delegation, and actually he suggested that Tinubu lacked an understanding of the severity of Nigeria's economic challenges. Could that be true? Well, Atiku questioned the rationale behind converting a climate change conference into what he described as a jamboree, all corners and Owambe party with over 1,400 delegates. Of course, they'll be sponsored and taken care of. Now, he characterized the situation as ridiculous and indicative of a governance approach lacking awareness of responsibility. The statement highlighted the pressing economic hardships faced by Nigerians and, of course, emphasizing the need for leaders to align their actions with the available resources. Atiku also criticized the use of borrowed funds for what he termed as street party held outside the country, calling attention to the disparity between the purpose of COP28 focusing on improving lives, clean air, healthy food, and a secure future, and the alleged extravagant delegation. And in his remarks, he added that to the growing chorus of criticism regarding the alleged misuse of resources and the size of the Nigerian delegation at the COP28, but the presidency also reacted to it. Now, one thing in the presidency's reaction is the fact that it says a handful. Now, what's a handful? When you say a handful was sponsored, you should be able to give us the amount, the exact number.
Specific figures.
How many people were sponsored? A handful could be the entire 1,400.
Yeah.
It's a handful, of course. Now let's take a look at what the presidency said.
According to the presidency and its reaction, it said the public outrage over the list of 1,411 delegates to the COP28 summit in Dubai, the United Arab Emirates. Now, according to reports, public outrage has greeted the list of the Nigerian delegates to the climate change summit, with many Nigerians on social media asking the reason for the inclusion of some names on the purported list. Now, reacting to the outrage in a post via his X handle on Sunday, the presidential aide, Dada Olusegun, said the summit is not specific to government officials or civil servants. Olusegun said the United Nations UN requested several of these bodies and private sector members to send a list of their delegates, and most of them to be sponsored by the World Bank, European Union, and others. Now, the presidential aide said the federal government is only responsible for catering for its immediate staff, which is, in its word,
a very tiny
portion of the total delegates. He noted that while there may be reservations about those on the delegate list, President Tinubu is not insensitive to allow such wastage at this point when he is leading the charge to cut wasteful spending. Because, I mean, this was part of the cardinal things that defined President Tinubu's ascension as president of the country. He said he was going to cut down on the number of people who accompany him or any other high-powered delegation to events of this nature. But then what is happening?
Okay, I think we'll come back to that. But before then, well, according to a televised interview, a social economic right and accountability project, Sarah has called on the Senate President Godswill Akpabio not to approve the alleged plan by the FCT Minister Nyesom Wike to actually conduct or construct a befitting residence for the Vice President Kashim Shettima. Well, the plea is outlined in a later dated December 2nd, addressing concerns over the proposed 15 billion naira expenditure. While Sarab's later specifically urges Akpabio to promptly reject the plan by the Minister of the FCT, Nyesom Wike, to spend 15 billion naira for the construction of a befitting residence for the Vice President, Mr. Kashim Shettima. And the organization emphasizes the need for prudence in public spending, especially when considering such a substantial allocation for a residential project. And also, Sarab has called on Akpabio to assert the Senate authority and constitutional oversight roles, while the organization encourages him to scrutinize and reject other questionable expenditures, including the proposed 2.8 billion naira allocated for publicity by the FCT, as well as any other potential wasteful spending outlined in the 2023 supplementary budget and the 2024 budget proposed by President Bola Tinubu.
The one that catches my attention the most, Rachel, is that part that talks about publicity. We both know, or don't you, that our honorable minister likes to always be in the face of the media. So
I mean, that's publicity enough.
It explains what that 2-point-something billion naira is for. And then talking about building a befitting
what is befitting?
Residence
I mean that's
for the vice president.
That explains it all. What does he term as befitting? I mean, let's say the vice president already has a home and he just needs an official home that he will move out for another person to stay somewhat. I mean, what even happened to the residents, the former vice president stay to do his job? Let's not go there. Let's just
what's
quickly,
about
you know, talking about probing investigations and all of that, the Senate has also done something commendable over the week. Now, that was last week by through its Committee on Solid Minerals, summoning the Minister of Mines and Solid Minerals, Dele Alake, to appear before it this week, Wednesday, for explanation on federal government's plan, work plan to develop a sector and block illegal mining.
The committee also berated Alake for allegedly disregarding invitations sent to him since he was appointed by the president. Alake incurred the wrath of the committee chaired by Senator Samson Ekong of Akwa Ibom with his absence at the session the committee held last Thursday. The committee expressed dissatisfaction about the failure of the minister to honor invitations since assumption of office, saying he always gave excuses of having to travel with President Bola Tinubu. The committees expressed concerns that the minister had abandoned his primary duties of bringing the mining sector to international repute, adding that his alleged inexperience in the sector had further created a cloudy future for the yet-to-be-explored wealth. The committee threatened to give zero allocation to the ministry in 2024 fiscal year if the minister fails to amend his ways and start responding to the invitations of the committee. Now, Rachel.
Xavier, the first time I came across this news, I almost clapped my hands. You know, if we have this kind of administration that can actually call a spade a spade. Now, you're not doing well, despite whoever you are or whoever appointed you. We are saying that you're not doing well, and we are summoning you, and you're refusing to appear because you are going out with the head, right? Now, you have every right to be summoned and to explain, what are you doing? You were assigned here to do this job. So why are you traveling with, are you the president's secretary? And you know, are you his timekeeper? Why is this is what you were assigned to do? Now, don't forget that before time, Dele Alake had been accused of not being fit for that position. Remember his former position as the president's information minister. Now, he was already, you know, accused of not being fit for that position. There was different calls by so many Nigerians out there saying Dele Alake should have maintained status quo before, you know, the president moved him to this position. So now the Senate, in few months of his existence, has seen that he is inexperienced. And of course, being summoned, oh, come explain this, and maybe, you know, sometimes you're not experienced, but then you
can have people you're working with.
Who you're working with, and then this is for the nation, not for your personal being, okay? You're being paid to be in his office. Yeah, you're serving, but you're being paid. I mean, remember when we talked about getting SUVs for the senators, and they said, oh, why are you looking at the senators? What happens to the ministers? So it simply means the ministers are gaining a lot. So if the ministers are gaining a lot, we also expect a lot from them. Well, let's go on a short break, and when we come right back, our guests will be here and we'll discuss properly. Do stay tuned. We're coming right back.
Every day marks a day of significance.
That in view of the apology tendered by this former minister,
Every day marks a day of significance.
that in view of the apology tendered by this former minister who had earlier been cleared by this August Assembly,
As we face critical issues, developments and events which shape our social and political landscape here in Nigeria and beyond. Political Spectrum is a program specially designed to help make sense of all the moving parts of developments and occurrences in our nation's polity and political economy.
There is nothing wrong with Nigeria, but there's everything wrong.
The educational history of public figures holds significance beyond mere biographical details.
From executive, legislative and judicial developments at national and subnational levels to international diplomacy and relations.
Join us for exclusive interviews with key political figures, expert opinions, analysts, thought-provoking conversations for and against, shedding light on the major issues that matter. We will always keep you updated on the most factual, smartest and unbiased reportage.
Stay tuned to Political Spectrum. Political Spectrum. All sides matter at the round table. Political Spectrum. Exclusive to Spectrum Television.
Broadcast and entertainment, sports on the go, and news around the world. Watch Spectrum TV on StarTimes DTH channel 421 and free-to-air frequency 12733. Visit our website SpectrumTVLive.ng. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon. Christmas season is here again. Are you aware that making your business or product visible on the television space gives your brand a wider visibility and patronage? In the spirit of the season, Spectrum Television is offering a whopping 25% discount on all services. Advertise your products and services while this offer lasts from 1st December 2023 to January 31st, 2024. We are a television with a passion to take your business and services on a satisfactory lane. You do not want to miss this opportunity. For more enquiries, visit our city office at number 2 Taft Plaza Close off Akaitinen Road, Uyo, Akwa Ibom State, or call the following numbers on your screen. Spectrum TV, broadening your horizon.
All right, welcome back. It's still the program, The Law for People and Governance. Well, trying to reach our guest, it's a bit difficult, but trust me, we're here and it's going to be interactive and informative as usual. So feel free, the phone lines are open. You can be part of a conversation. What do you feel about the number of delegates that the president went with to for the COP28? Well, so many people have said that it was uncalled for, while the PDP, the opposition party, has strongly criticized, calling it a street party. Well, the federal government, the presidency rather, has clarified issues and said most of them were sponsored by the UN, sponsored by the World Bank, and just a handful, a tiny portion was sponsored by the federal government, and also what you also feel about the fact that Senate President, or the Senate rather, the National Assembly has decided to summon the Minister for Mines, Dele Alake. Well, don't forget that before now, the Senate was the same people that screened him and saw him fit for the job. And in the middle of the job, the Senate says he's inexperienced and has been avoiding, the invitations of the Senate. Let's get to know your take. Meanwhile, Xavier Robert is still here.
Yes, thanks, Rachel. I was thinking you were going to add the fact that Serap has had issues with the fact that Wike is planning some very...
planning to put it the way it is, planning to construct a befitting residence
for the vice
so
president.
You're telling us that the one he's currently living right now is not befitting for a man in such position. Now, before now, the Senate president had money enough to, acquire his own residential, structure. So what happened? Now, I get he's serving the public and he needs an office, official office. What happened to the vice president, the former vice president, Yemi Osinbajo, stayed before now? Was it not befitting? Oh, yeah. So the former vice president was actually staying in an unbefitting, apartment.
The issue wouldn't even be the fact that they are planning to build a befitting structure for the vice president, but in light of the realities of the country currently, Rachel,
and don't forget, I think over 2.8 or so million naira for publicity in the FCTA.
Yeah. Now, in light of the realities, the economic realities on ground, would that be the first point of call with all the heated comments in all sectors of the country? Would you think that this should be the call that anybody would make within a government circle when you should be thinking of pertinent issues like intervening in the myriads of issues that the people are going through, channeling these funds towards bettering the lives of people? And here we're talking about building befitting residences for the vice president. What about renovating whatever was on ground or making it a little bit more juicy or befitting? There's always a way to renovate.
I think that the fact that the Serap has, called for scrutiny of spending such amount of money, I think 15 billion or 15 million naira.
Yes, billion naira.
Billion naira, wow. 15 billion naira, just for one person's residence.
Another 2 billion for publicity.
Well, I think that at this point that Nigeria is grappling. Let me even talk about what's the reality on the street of Nigeria currently. The reality is that a bag of rice is not affordable for an average Nigerian. A bag of rice is not affordable. There's some, would I say rich Nigerians who during the season would love to, be nice.
Magnanimous to...
Yeah, people around them. But right now, you can't even blame them if they can't do this here, because nobody can really
cough out such
amount of money, over 57 or 56,000 naira to get a bag of rice and start sharing. So a bag of rice cannot be afforded by an average Nigerian. Not even a bag of sand rice can be affordable.
That was considered a poor man's
not even beans that is 230 naira in a cup, according to report, and not even oil. Or is it cooking gas?
That is now over 1,000 naira.
Is it water in a bag? Now, a bag of water that is, so many people cannot afford to buy the bottled the bottled water, so they would always go for
the sachet.
A bag, that contains some sachets. Now, it's 400 naira per bag. So these are things, and then we're talking about, health issues. We're talking about, keeping Nigeria clean. We're talking about making people, live a better life, free from diarrhea, free from cholera, free from all of that. And then we're talking about water that the one that is treated for people to be able to drink is now 400 naira a bag, right? And then what is really happening? Is it transportation that we're talking about? What is cheap in Nigeria today? Is it a cup of Gary? So you now stand and then you think about these things, what people are going through on a daily basis. Say you're often, you see parents go to pick their kids in school and they're trekking with their children. That's because they can't afford to pay for their children.
Fares.
Yeah, and pay for themselves as well. So they'd rather back their children and carry some and, all of that. And this is a time where we are having, our public office holders,
talking about,
think about getting befitting stuffs for themselves. What happens to saying, oh, the vice president deserves a befitting residence, but let's just keep it aside for now. When things are cool, we'll now get the vice president, or the vice president coming out to say, oh, halt that for now. I know I need it, but halt it.
And reverse the talking point. Make Nigerians talk about something different. Make Nigerians see that you are humane and you actually you're concerned about what the people are going through.
December is here, and then we're still looking out for refineries that they said is going to work. So we have a lot of issues to talk about. Now, coming to the part that the Senate has, berated Alake for allegedly disregarding invitations sent to him since he was appointed by the president. And then this is, I'm giving kudos to the Senate for this act. If office holders can be scrutinized, can be, investigated, can be monitored.
Put on their toes to discharge the duties that they swore to discharge, because most of these ministers, they were all promissory. They made all sorts of flowery statements about how they're going to do well by Nigerians and make sure that lives are touched and impacted by their services. But then you see, what is it with invitations and ministers in Nigeria? Because it's as if once they are given that portfolio,
they are
automatically they're no longer interested in whatever happens at the Senate. That screened them, because even in successive governments, Rachel, you would notice that it's a recurrent decimal. A minister comes on board and suddenly they cannot appear before the Senate anymore for clarifications on issues bordering on whatever parastatal they are heading.
You know what is interesting? What is interesting is that, right now everyone is on their toes. The fact that money has been, given to so many people to do so many things, and it is undone. The oil, some oil companies were also summoned, and then, a whole lot of other people have been summoned. People have been threatened that their offices are going to, be held responsible. Even some health agencies have been summoned to give account of how they spent the COVID-19 pandemic funds. So if we have this kind of things happening, and it's real, because it's not just all about, the last time Sarah talked about, summoning someone and investigating, so many Nigerians were asking, Sarah, you're always doing this, but we don't see the outcome. We don't see the end. Yes. So if this is real, we follow up, we see the outcome, this is what's happening. I think every other person will be on their toes. It would look like if Dele Alake, who looked like he's so close to the president's heart, could be summoned and scrutinized by the Senate. I need to sit up. Another person needs to sit up. We need to work hard.
Well, another angle, Rachel, to this summoning of Dele Alake is, to what extent can this be prosecuted by the Senate committee? Is it possible that it will get to a point where whatever they are trying to do to the minister would be halted by some unknown forces?
You see, looking at this, I think the part where the Senate says the minister is inexperienced is the part that is quite interesting and concerning. Now, before now, so many people had, made calls, different talks, different reactions, different knocks. I think I never really found someone. We talked about this, the personalities of the ministers. We also scrutinized them here on set in the studio. And then all the guests I had, all the resource person, the analysts talking about the minister's personality, said Dele Alake was not fit for that position.
Particular position.
Okay.
What happened to the information wing he was heading?
So you understand. So, maybe the president wanted to put him in a more bigger and engaging position, okay? So like upgrading his position, but not looking at the fact that he wasn't experienced for that.
You're avoiding using the word juicy.
Oh, yeah. You know, I think this is a time where we have to sit back and then look at the things that the people who are manning different offices, and the fact that he has been given 1 week to appear, and of course, no, this week Wednesday.
Of course, it's this week Wednesday.
So yeah, to appear, and then I am going to monitor that and see to the fact that if he appears, what's going to happen? What's the Senate going to say?
What
because
will be the
these are the same
explanations
people who asked him questions. I don't want to use the word manifestos, but there are some promises, there are some words, there are some things he said that motivated the Senate to give him that position and say, oh, look, let's try this man out. He may be inexperienced, but he has promised that he's going to learn on the job.
And Rachel, I feel that leads us to the events at the COP28 and then the issue as regards the over 1,000 delegates that accompanied the president to that summit. What are the downsides of this huge size of delegation, and if the words of the spokesman of the president is anything to go by, where they try to give clarifications as to how many was actually sponsored? Well,
Xavier, I'd like to give you the words of the presidency. A tiny portion.
Okay, they said a tiny portion.
Yeah, a tiny portion.
How verifiable is that?
When you say a tiny portion, you're not talking about grains of rice. You're not talking about, you know, does Gary
Why
have
don't
grains?
we just get
the number? We're talking about the things that have numbers, people, pay head. You know, they have names. Come on, you're talking to people. They have names, they have, you know, tags, they have different positions.
And we can simply be told.
So we can be told, oh, out of the 1,400 people, don't panic. The federal government is just sponsoring 400 people. The other 1,000, most of them are self-sponsored, most of them by the United Nations, most of them by the World Bank and all what have you. So don't be afraid. The government is not spending. Now, don't forget that the president has been accused of spending in an extravagant way each time he travels outside. Remember when he went for the UNGA summit?
And the issues of accommodations and the hotels and all that.
And then luxury apartments and all of that. He was also accused. And then, you know, he's always been accused of extra spending. Always, anytime he travels for events. And then we're seeing this repeat itself. And all the presidency says is a tiny portion. So a tiny portion looks like you're just trying to cover up. I mean, let's have these receipts. You are promising an accountability and a transparency-led administration. So this is the way you show that you're being transparent and you can be held accountable. We have receipts of these people. We have nothing to hide. This is how it is. These people took flight. We are just sponsoring 400 or we're sponsoring. Now, if you say a tiny portion, I definitely believe it's not going to be more than 400 because the rest, even if you say 500, you should be talking about, a quarter or something. So let's operate on the basis of accountability and transparency here.
And I think a very important aspect of being clear when you are responding to criticism is so that you can give the people listening to you the satisfaction of knowing that, yes, this government is actually transparent and we're doing everything possible to let the people know what is truly happening within the circle of governance instead of, you know, trying to play hide and seek with the state and its people. You come out plain and you let people know what exactly is happening. How are we spending these funds? What number of people is accompanying the president to these summits?
Well, Xavier, I'd like you to know that the president has promised a bright future despite the economic hardship.
A lot of promises, Rachel. A lot of promises from the...
Okay, I think at this point, the fact that he comes out to, you know, give Nigerians hope is what I must give it up to the president for. Well, this is where we close the curtains for today. Thank you so much, Xavier Robert.
Many thanks, Rachel, and thank you, viewers, for being a part of this one. See you again tomorrow.
All right, don't forget to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, SpectrumTVLive.ng. Catch you again tomorrow and the next and the next. My name is Rachel David White.
And I'm Xavier Robert. Bye.
Good evening.